Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Matt here. This video will be part 4 of our FSFO version 5 tutorial series, in which we will not only go through the pre-flight flow procedures for the PMDG 737, but we will talk about how FSFO interacts with GSX. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that my ground configuration options are set correctly. I do have ground services enabled. I do have GSX enabled. If you don't have GSX enabled, then FSFO would just use the Microsoft Flight Simulator's embedded ground service vehicles. Next up, I do want FSFO to request the jetway, although as you can see here, we're not at a jetway, so we're out in a parking spot. So FSFO will request a jetway, or I should say should request a jetway, but we won't have one available to us. Yes, I do want FSFO to include packs and cargo. So since it's included, you should see FSFO manipulate the GSX menu to start the boarding process. We also want to include the catering service, so FSFO should request a catering truck from GSX, as well as initiate GSX push-up and include the engine starts. I'm also going to have the ground services include doors enabled, so the copilot should open the doors during the pre-flight flow, which I will show you when we get to that point. Here's all of our other advanced options associated with the ground. You can see I have catering set to 60 seconds delay, meaning when FSFO establishes or provides power to the aircraft, once that's completed, a countdown of 60 seconds will start, from which time the FSFO will request the catering services. We have a 4-minute delay from when power is established to when the packs start boarding. Completely manipulated or available to be manipulated by the user, but those are what I have set up. Okay, so first thing we want to do is connect FSFO to the simulator by clicking the power button. We want to look at the self-test to make sure everything's good and everything was green. And now we're going to start the pre-flight flow. A 30-second delay, that gives us a good time to go through and make sure that everything is set correctly. I am going to cheat just a little bit. I already know my configurations because I went ahead and I use a program called TopCat. So I have all my pre-flight or performance data ready to enter. Okay, there's the pre-flight flow. As you can see, FSFO went and tried to connect the GSX gateway, but we are in we are at a parking spot that doesn't have a jetway, so it was not available to us. Next up, the copilot will go ahead and perform the safety check, so he's making sure the throttles are set, the flaps are up, throttle thrust levers are in the idle position, fuel cutoff switches, wipers are off, everything associated with the safety check, and now he's proceeding to the power up. He's proceeding to the power up based on previous discussion. We can see here copilot power up the aircraft. We have yes. If that was no, I would be responsible for setting up the power. You'll note that during this procedure, he's going to request the GPU from the FMC because we're telling him to do so. If that value wasn't set to GPU, if it was set to APU, he, instead of requesting the GPU down here in his FMC, he would go ahead and fire up the APU up on the up here. So, but we have it set to JPU to mimic real life procedures. And now we're just kind of waiting for the aircraft to run through its self-test, checking all of its computers, making sure that everything is operating as intended. Once this is the power-up procedures is complete, the first officer will iterate through his responsibilities. As you can see, I don't have anything here listed to do. So this would be the time I would be filing my VATSIM flight plan, communicating with ATC, and getting everything ready to go for my pre-departure clearance. That's why it's nice to have a first officer to configure the aircraft while you're doing the administrative stuff associated with flying. Okay, here comes some self-test, performance test. Again, based on the no power equals system test, we have yes. Copilot entered the cockpit. It was in a cold and dark state, so he's assuming this is the first flight of the day and thus running through all those system tests that would be associated with that very first flight. As previously discussed, here is now the copilot requesting the GPU from his FMS. And it will take just 20 seconds for that GPU to become connected. After that, the copilot will turn power off or transfer power from the batteries over to the ground power unit. And in 2 seconds, and there we go. There was the switch, and the aircraft is now on ground power. The power has been established, and the copilot is now opening the doors. Remember, we said that that would happen based on the previous setting that we discussed about. And now you can see a countdown. Catering services will be requested in 60 seconds. We do not have fuel services enabled, but fuel services happen 60 seconds after the catering service. Boarding will start in a little over 3 minutes. So here's a countdown to when we should see FSFO interacting with the GSX menu to request those services. Copilot is continuing. Now he's now up in the panel running through his CVR test. You just saw that up here. Looked like that was successful. And now he's moving down to his the mock test. All right, running through his test. Lights test are next. All the lights go on. They look good. And then on the very top panel, you're now seeing the copilot switch the IRS to the nav position. All right, IRS is set. Now we're working our way down to the hydraulic pumps. And right now, in 1 second, we should see that GSX screen manipulated to request catering services. And there we go. FSFO, unfortunately, does not have the ability to select which service it will provide it. You can see it will just choose the random one, which in this case was Envoy. So Envoy is providing our catering services today, and you can see that was successfully selected by FSFO. Next up, a little over 2 minutes, the copilot will request boarding from GSX. And we should see that catering service truck arrive.
Are we good to start programming the FMC?
Okay, so you can see the copilot has asked us about the FMC. Within the editor, you can see I have the action load FMC from SimBrief, which means you have to go through and you have to request the data from SimBrief. So let's go ahead and do that now. That visual cue or that verbal cue was a warning for me to go ahead and do that now. There is my data requested from SimBrief. It looks like it's good. Flight plan is good. So now I can reply with yes, or I can simply hit the action button previously discussed or hold Control plus Alt. Yes.
All right, I'll start loading the route now.
All right, so there we go. We told him yes, and now he should come down here and he should request that route from SimBrief, and there he goes. And then we also set the payload, again, from previous discussions within the editor. If we go down the editor, we load the PMDG 737, we go to pre-flight flow, and we look for that FMC. We have it set to 1, so that loads the route and sets the payload. If we would have had that set to 0, he would have simply loaded the route, and then you could have imported the payload from the EFP. The old way is there of doing it too. If you just want the FSFO to input the company route that from a flight plan that you downloaded, that is also still available in the editor if you prefer that way of doing things. All right, so the copilot is now just waiting, and I think I hear the fuel truck, or excuse me, the catering services outside, and I do. So looks like that was successful. GSX integration with FSFO. And it looks like we have a...
the computer's all programmed except for the SIDS and stars.
All right, so there we go. The SIDS and stars are the last thing to do. So we know we have SIDS and stars. I'm going to go ahead and add those now. Again, just flying my traditional route. It's quick and good visuals, and it's quick. So Ocean 5, E&E, and ILS 27. And let's clear any discontinuities or disconnects. And there we go. So route is all in. Boarding should start here in 4 seconds. And let's just make sure the
The
legs
gate
page
agent is ready. Are we okay to start boarding?
And there we go. So when we're ready, we can hit Control Shift, or we can say send them down. I'll use the buttons this time since we used voice last time.
Yes, we're all set up here.
Okay, so there he goes. We said we're all set up here. Again, you could use the verbal command, send them down. And then there's FSFO just requested the boarding, and now we're waiting for the passengers to arrive. This could take a little while because we are out here not at the gate or at a jetway, so it will take a little bit of time because we'll have to use buses to bring the passengers out here. It's okay, though. The copilot is doing their walk around, and we are waiting for those passengers. Once the copilot gets their walk around down, they'll come back to do the performance data. Again, unfortunately, I don't have a mechanism to choose the operator yet. I will, though, so you'll get the default operator within GSX. As you can see up here, boarding passengers now. If you want, you can choose, do you want the crew? I like to choose no. Nobody. FSFO will automatically select nobody for you. Doesn't make much sense to have the passengers or the crew board the aircraft when you're already on the aircraft, powering it up and getting it set to go. So never understood that option. So FSFO will just select one for you, which is nobody. And there's the warning from GSX about the passenger butt coming. As you can see, I haven't touched anything. It's been all FSFO manipulating those menus, making things happen within GSX. Okay, while we're waiting for the passengers, we already took a look at our route. We know we're good to go. We took a look at our plan. I already know the configuration data. However, if you don't, this would be a good time for you now to use the performance tool within GSX. And you could just, super easy to use. You can import from the aircraft, import from the flight plan, and it gets all of its data operator. So import the weather and then calculate oh, what did we forget? Oh, sorry, I have to select the runway to get the elevation. We said runway 13, and now we can calculate. Super, super easy to use. Take off one, and then I got 49 from Top Cat, but we were only off by one. I'm good with that. So Top Cat's still a very reliable, old performance calculator for what used to be FSX and now Microsoft Flight Simulator. So there we go. Calculation performance data checks out. The reason why I had to set them within FSFO is because if you remember, I told my copilot to go ahead and load the FMC performance data. He's going to load the performance data I had set on that plan page. And right on cue, here comes the GSX passengers boarding the aircraft now. Everything is running as it should. As I said, most of the bugs have been fixed in version 5 long ago. However, I keep finding better ways to do things. For example, in the previous tutorial, we talked about how to edit and assign checklist. I did not like how that worked in the previous edition, so I wanted to fix that before really pushing that out. All right, so the copilot is still on his walk around, but I'm going to go ahead and call him back so he can finish his pre-flight flow. We're just going to end that early by hitting Control plus Alt.
Walk around completed.
And now you should see him come back, and you should see him start to do the performance data based on the configuration data that we put on the FSFO performance page and the data downloaded from SimBrief. So this wouldn't be possible if you did not create a flight plan within SimBrief. Because FSFO does literally everything for you. He's even going to, as you can see here, he's going to put the cruise wind in for you as well. Very comprehensive. And there's our performance data. Put the flex temperature in. We said a takeoff of 1, which he just did. Flaps are 1. He'll even put the CG for you. And then he will input the program V-speeds. All the FMC completely done by your first officer. The only thing you had to do was select those SIDS and stars. He's now working on his panel. just setting the window heat switches, and through the anti-ice. Hydraulic electrical pumps coming on. And then he will even set the altitude pressure. You can see here he set it to the cruise altitude 30,000 and then our ground altitude. So very comprehensive. Now coming down here, he's going to set the MCP. And there it is. Based on, remember we set initial altitude of 10,000. He set that. Both flight directors are on. And now he's running through the stall test. Next up will be that GPWS test. Again, right now the copilot's doing everything, but if you're somebody who wants a lot of things to do themselves, again, the previous video can discuss how you can change or edit what the copilot does. It can do as little or as much as you want. The point of this video, though, is to showcase how FSFO is completely capable of configuring almost your entire systems. So very happy with this. We'll turn GSX down just a little bit. Running through that GPWS test now. Boarding is almost halfway over. So what will happen is after we get done the once we run through our pre-flight checklist and our before start flow, we should get FSO will ask GSX after the before start checklist is completed to initiate the pushback. So he'll even ask for GSX to push back. Complete integration. All right, so we have a second passenger bus coming. I wish there was a way to speed up the GSX boarding process. Love GSX, great utility. I don't use it myself because I just don't have a lot of time. In fact, I haven't even really flown in a year anyways because I've been working on version 5. That's all I've been doing. Look forward to the day when this is over and I can get back to simming myself because I very do much miss it. But committed to this and I wanted to make sure it got done. All right, so there is the pre-flight flow completed. The passengers are still boarding, but let's go through the pre-flight checklist. And I'm going to use voice for this. Pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested.
Navigation transfer and display switches.
Normal and auto.
Window heat.
On.
Pressurization mode selector.
Auto.
Flight instruments.
Set.
Parking brake.
Set.
Fuel control switches.
Cut off.
Departure briefing. It will be a left seat takeoff from Kilo, Bravo, Golf, Romeo, 2, Kilo, Bravo, Oscar, Sierra. The reported runway conditions are normal. Taxi route is per ATC instructions. We'll be departing on runway 33. Climbing via the departure procedures to an initial altitude of 10,000 feet. Standard reject and emergency procedures apply. Any questions?
I'm good. Pre-flight checklist complete.
And there's our pre-flight checklist, all completed with voice. As you know, you don't have to use voice. You can use the without the microphone enabled. If you were to let's just show you. If you don't use the microphone, this is what you'll get.
Oxygen.
Tested.
Navigation transfer and display switches.
Normal and auto.
Window heat.
On.
Pressurization mode selector.
Auto.
Flight instruments.
Set.
Parking brake.
On.
Okay.
Fuel control switches.
Cutoff. Departure briefing. It will be a left seat takeoff from Kilo, Bravo, Golf, Romeo, 2, Kilo, Bravo, Oscar, Sierra. The reported runway conditions are normal. Taxi route is per ATC instructions. We'll be departing on runway 33. Climbing via the departure procedures to an initial altitude of 10,000 feet. Standard reject and emergency procedures apply. Any questions?
No.
Completed.
Pre-flight checklist complete.
Okay, there's our pre-flight checklist. When we're not using voice, that's the difference between the two of them. If one of those systems were not set correctly, as you're well aware, the copilot would just wait patiently for you to set correctly. I tried to demonstrate as the parking brake, terrible system to use. because the chocks are in place. So FSFO considers chocks also with parking brakes. So I would have had to remove the chocks to demonstrate that. But we can do that maybe during the pre-flight checklist. All right, so we are still waiting for those passengers to board, and we cannot start the pre-flight flow or before start flow until the remaining now 12 passengers aboard the aircraft. Good opportunity to not only in the simulation world, but in the real world to take a sip of coffee. It's my sincere hope that version 5 will you'll view that as better than version or FSFO next. This is the GUI I am going to stick with for quite some time. It's as it stands right now, I am well into 14 months of development, and I still only have 4 profiles transferred over. So still lots of work to do. Okay, there we go. We are now completely boarded. So FSO would attempt to remove the jetway, but again, we are out here at a slot with no jetway. GSX boarding is complete, so let's go ahead and close our doors. And because we're in auto mode, FSFO should automatically start the before start checklist based on that delay that we had identified as 10 seconds. So did exactly what we asked them to do, wait to start the before start flow. And there he goes, right into it, starting with the APU. And that did not reset. There we go. Starting with the APU, it takes a little bit of time for the APU to spool up. If you needed to save time, you could identify the APU as the power-up source instead of the GPU. Saves quite a bit of time. Or quite a bit of time is a bit of an exaggeration. It can save you a couple minutes. There's the GPU spooling now. Once it reaches the appropriate EGT, FSFO will transfer power from the ground power over to the APU generators. And then we will use the bleed air from the APU to start the engines. All right, we're almost there. And there's the APU bus just came on. FSFO is just giving it a few more seconds, and then he's going to transfer that power. There it is. We are now on APU power. Over here, the fuel pumps are coming on. As you can see there, hydraulic pumps are being set, coming on. Packs are coming off. Need the packs off during engine start. The anti-collision light's on, and now we're going to go ahead down here, and the FSFO is going to disconnect the ground power unit and remove the chocks, and then clear the alarms after disconnecting. And then he's going to set our parking brake for us. There we go. He cleared the warnings, but not the cautions. I need to put that in my checklist. That's a configurable option. All right, so we are all set now for the float. Let's go ahead and execute our before start checklist. Oh, there goes the safety message. No problem, we can still do our checklist.
Before start checklist. Flight deck door.
Closed and locked.
Fuel 13412 pounds.
Check.
Passenger signs.
On.
MCP. Speed 136. Heading 330. Altitude 10000.
Set.
Takeoff speeds. V1 132. VR 133. V2 136.
Check.
CDU preflight.
Completed.
Rudder and aileron trim.
Free and 0.
Anti-collision lights.
On.
Before start checklist complete.
Okay, there's our before start checklist. One thing I love about the PMDG, as you can see, your V-speeds are automatically populated. PMDG is just a fantastic SDK, and it has everything right there that you need to read. So, safety message is playing, and we are now waiting for FSFO to request the pushback from GSX. You can see there's a 30 seconds delay from when that happens once the before start checklist is completed, and you can see he just did that. So we should have the GSX pushback available here in just a second. Takes just a minute, but there you can see the personnel coming up to connect the tug, and we should get.
Hello, Captain. We are ready to push back.
And from here, we're just going to follow the GSX instructions. Sorry about the safety message. A configurable option. If you don't want to hear FSFO play that long of a message, just uncheck this right here.
Checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
And we should get the release parking brake in just a second. Here comes the tug. Again, we haven't done anything. This has been all FSFO interacting with GSX.
Locking gear.
We're just about there. This is the, again, GSX is great, but this is, it's just the lengthy, the time it takes to do things. Realistic, I wish I had time, but I don't. This is the one thing FSFO cannot do. Yet, I am going to go ahead and fix this, though. I think there's a mechanism I can use. So you will have to tell it which direction you want it to go.
Release parking brakes.
Parking brake off.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Okay. There's the pushback. Let's go ahead and start engines. Start engines. And there's FSFO is going to start my engines while I monitor the pushback. Safety message is done playing. And now we're just pushing back. So everything is, again, all the bugs have been pretty much squashed. A few couple nail or ankle biters, nothing too catastrophic or nothing even remotely bad that would interrupt your flight. So we are really, really close.
Started.
Just want to make sure it's absolutely perfect before releasing it. Really, for me particular, really love version 5 in the GSX and PMDG. It's a really good combination. Okay, GSX does a fantastic job pushing back every single time.
Engine 2 cut out.
Okay, there's engine 2 is cut out, as you can see up here. The FSFO first officer went ahead and announced when the engine fired, and then when the starter switch was back into the off position.
Starting engine 1.
Now we're starting engine 1.
Confirmation for a good engine start.
Okay, waiting our confirmation. So again, your first officer will do this for you, but to give that confirmation, he's just going to wait until the engines are actually fired or start. There you go. He just introduced fuel into engine 1, and we should have engine start here in just a minute, or 40 seconds to be precise.
Engine 1 started.
There's engine 1 just fired, but we need to wait for that engine cutout. And then what happens is once we get a good engine start, your first officer will confirm that with GSX. We're just waiting for that now. And
Engine 1 cutout.
There we go. There's the cutout. And now we're just waiting for the engines to stabilize when they get within a tolerance, vibration tolerance of each other, and an N1 tolerance. FSFO will consider that stable.
All engines stable.
There we go. There's the engine stable, and
We have a good engine start.
there's your copilot right on cue confirming that good engine start. Engines are stabilized. GSX is good to go. We've confirmed engine start, and now the copilot is running through his after start flow. Packs are coming back on. Taxi lights are on. Dome lights were set. Again, your copilot will set his FMC to the flights page, to the leg page, we will set ours to the perf page. And that's, let's go ahead and run through the taxi checklist.
Taxi checklist. Generators.
On.
Probe heat.
Okay, I wanted to
Truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
I wanted to talk about what earlier. Now the copilot is going to wait 10 seconds. We don't have the probe heat set in the
Probe
correct position. So he's going to repeat it every 10 seconds until we set it to the correct position that he's expecting.
On.
Isolation valve.
Auto.
Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Recall.
Check.
Auto brakes.
Rejected takeoff.
Flight control task.
All right, move the flight control task. We're going to move our flight controls to the left,
Full left.
to the right,
Full right.
full back,
Full back.
and full forward.
Full forward.
Check.
After start checklist complete.
There's the after start checklist. So there is the entire pre-flight procedures using GSX. As you can see, we have a pretty good integration with FSFO. The one thing I wanted to show you just to continue to demonstrate how the editor works. You remember the probe heat. He waited on that probe heat until we set it on. That's because we told him which value to expect. We told him that the probe heat should be set to a value of 1, and that case is on. That's why he waited. If we would have had that set to a value of 0, he would have proceeded to the next item. That's how easy it is to set your checklist and what you want the copilot to do. Okay, I think that's enough here. That is the PMDG 737 and FSFO interacting with GSX. Hope you enjoyed the video. That concludes our tutorial series. Until the next video, which we'll do a full flight, and I look forward to hearing your comments and your help to make version 5 better once it's fully released. With that, have a great evening, guys.